everybody. This is Jackie Luqman.
And I'm Abdulwahab Luqman.
And welcome to another edition of Live in Coffee, Current Events and Politics in Luqman Nation.
The most dangerous show on social media.
Yes, man. Today is Saturday, October 20th. And look, as always, we're going to give you guys a few minutes to grab some friends, share this video, invite some people, because we got to talk about this Saudi Arabia and Israel connection, because a lot of people are not looking at this issue with Saudi Arabia in connection to Israel and what that means in regard to how the United States is portrayed on the world stage. But we're going to talk about that tonight. And since we're talking about image, we're going to talk about Michelle Obama and what the problem is with Michelle Obama and the symbolism and imagery of Michelle Obama and why that's dangerous for black politics in this country. So we got a lot of ground to cover, and a lot of it is going to be covered by the history guru here in Luqman Nation, because he's going to explain all this stuff about Turkey's involvement, what Turkey has to gain from all this, why they're even in this, Saudi Arabia's history, which we've talked about a little bit before,
spoke about that before,
and what that history has to do with it. I mean, so look, this is a real serious conversation about politics, policy, this, new stuff that we're all excited about right now, but why it's been long simmering. So pull up a chair, grab yourself a big old cup. We got a lot of serious, just hot, steaming, black, unapologetic truth to talk to you about tonight. But before we do, listen, if you enjoy what we do here in Luqman Nation, we appreciate your support. We ask that you consider supporting Luqman Nation either through monthly contributions or one-time donations. We understand that everybody's struggling, but this is serious work that we do.
Yeah.
And we believe that we work really hard to bring you not just perspectives from our studios here in Luqman Nation, but we go out into the trenches. We try to get to conferences. We try to bring you all kinds of information from people on the ground who are doing the work. So if you like what you see here in Luqman Nation, consider supporting us through monthly contributions or one-time donations. You can do monthly contributions through Patreon or one-time donation through GoFundMe, and you can find us on both platforms searching under Luqman Nation, LuqManNation.
And we would like to also shout out to those of you who are patrons of ours. And we appreciate the gifts that you give us. Trust me, we both have day jobs, so nobody is trying to get rich off of this.
Right.
We basically use our Patreon gifts to upgrade our equipment.
Yes.
Which we have done.
And thank you guys, you patrons, for helping us do that. That's why our streams are almost seamless now.
Right, and help us in other areas. But trust me, we fund most of what we do out of our own pockets and everything, because we have a passion to bring you unadulterated, unfiltered content. And the reason why we call ourselves the most dangerous show on social media, because we're about telling the truth. We're about telling the truth. We're not sugarcoating anything. We're not about the business of following the most popular opinions and trends and everything. We really do try to do critical analysis, and not saying that we're always correct in that, but we do try to encourage critical thinking, especially with ourselves and with our audience. Anyway, we're going to get to it. Michelle Novello, welcome, and my father, he's joined. Hey, Pop, how you doing?
And Shirley Vick over on YouTube. Hey Shirley, hey.
Right, so anyway, tomorrow, just to give you some local news that's coming up, we have the Women's March.
Yep, the
tomorrow.
Women's March on the Pentagon is tomorrow, and Luqman Nation will be there to provide you some live coverage, so stay tuned for that. And also, please remember that every Friday, up until the midterm elections, and who knows what's going to happen after that, but every Friday, Luqman Nation represents on Loud and Clear. And we talk with John Kiriakou about nothing but midterm election news, information, updates, trends, where we think these races are going. And as we're getting down to the wire, things have gotten pretty interesting. We will have a link to last Friday's Loud and Clear segment on midterm roundup. We'll have that up on our Facebook page. Later on tonight, I think I just saw it in our inbox today. Those have been some really, really great shows.
Oh, sure.
And we just have so much fun looking at these midterm races and seeing what they mean, not just to people in those states and in those districts, but also in the larger landscape of American politics. So we hope you check those out.
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, we're starting to really, explore, the different areas of what we're doing, and we're still fairly new at this, and we're just grateful to the people who support us. We're grateful to the new friends that we have met. We're grateful for a lot of our friends who have just been really wonderful with allowing us to interview them and giving freely of their time. I mean, I never thought that we would be where we are, but here we are, So anyway, enough with the Hallmark moment.
Yeah, no more Hallmark moments. I'm about to tear up and start playing sad music as we do a retrospective, but that's another show. All right, listen here. Let's talk about this murder of Washington Post and international journalist Jamal Khashoggi.
Yeah, Khashoggi
I'm sorry. We're probably not pronouncing his name correctly, but we all know what's going on here. For 2 weeks, the Saudi government has said that Khashoggi went to the consulate, the Saudi Arabian consulate, and they claim that he left for 2 weeks. Now, this man went there. We find out recently, like today or yesterday, that he actually went there with his fiance, and he went there to get paperwork so that they could get married.
Right. He's a Saudi citizen.
He's a Saudi citizen. He was a journalist for the Washington Post. He lived in the United States, but he was moving. Apparently, he was moving back to where he was from. But he was getting married. That's why he was at the Saudi consulate to get paperwork to get married. And for 2 weeks, his fiance is like, he went in there and he didn't come out. And then the Turkish government said something happened to this man and we think the Saudis have done something to him. And for 2 weeks, the Saudis have said, nope, he went in and he left. But then Turkey released this video.
Audio.
Well, they released
they released the video of him going in.
Right. And there's no video of him coming out. Then they released this audio of his screams. So then this was after 2 weeks, and the Saudi government could no longer deny that something happened to this man. They could no longer deny that he went into the consulate, never came out. So now they finally admitted, okay, yeah, he's dead.
Well, I mean, let's fill in some of those gaps because first of all, Jamal Khashoggi was in exile. He was in exile. He's a dissident. He was before he was actually a close advisor to the Crown Prince's family.
Really,
he was actually a close advisor.
Oh,
so he was part of the inner circle. But he's a dissident, and because of his opinions and some of his critiques of the Saudi government, the pressure was on, and he had to leave, and so he was taking a risk going into the consulate. In fact, they just released, I can't remember the media source, but they just released his last interview.
Yes.
That he did, where he kind of basically admitted that he was in fear of his life. You know, so he, you know, his critique of the Saudi government, his writings, which was critiquing the Saudi government, especially the Crown Prince. And we're going to get into this maniac of this maniac of the Crown Prince who now rules Saudi Arabia. But he was very, very critical of the Saudi government, and so that put pressure on him, and he had to leave, you know. And you know, it's not like Noam Chomsky who can sit here and criticize the United States and, you know, and nothing happens to him.
Right.
But in a lot of these countries, that type of being a dissident could literally cost you your life.
Right.
So, you know, he was a columnist and contributor to the Washington Post. And like you said, very, very internationally known and well respected, which is the reason why his disappearance, and now that the Saudis admit that he is dead, which is the reason why it was such a diplomatic problem.
Right.
International problem for the Saudis, you know, because this person, he wasn't a nobody.
Exactly.
You know, and he was well respected, you know. So anyway, like you said, Jackie, he did go to get whatever paperwork he needed to get married, you know. And I imagine that because he was visiting the consulate in another country, I guess he felt some kind of measure of safety.
Right.
You know, I mean, you know, and figured like, you know, well, who would do anything to me on, you know, so even though a consulate is technically Saudi soil,
right? But,
you know, who's going to do anything to me, you know? So I guess he felt some measure of security. He probably was even promised. And I believe that there was some reports that stated that he was given assurances that, you know, that he would be safe if he came to this, you know, so... he's, you know, I couldn't imagine him going there if he wasn't given some assurances that, you know, he would be safe.
Right.
So he goes in and as you said, the you know, and let's be clear. If anybody's wondering why the Turkish government have these audio of
right, yeah, explain that.
It's routine in any country to have embassies of other nations surveilled.
So you mean to tell me that here in Washington, D.C., all of the embassies that exist here in this city that are embassies of all of these other countries, you mean to tell me we have those people under those embassies under surveillance?
Well, remember under Barack Obama's administration, there was a big controversy of when it was leaked. I think it was through WikiLeaks that that the NSA was spying on Germany, and they were spying, you know, and I remember that. Yeah, and it created some problems for Barack Obama when that was leaked out. But in those type of diplomatic circles, it's you know, it's expected and assumed that, you know, these nations surveil each other's embassies, and Israel spies on us, we spy on them, you know, the Russians, and, you know, so, I mean, this is just part of the way that governments work, you know, so, I mean, yeah, you could technically say, well, our embassy is part of our soil, but when your embassy is located in someone else's country, trust me, the intelligence services and stuff are already, you know, they're surveilling you, and so this is the reason why Turkey was able to have all this audio, and was able
and the video,
and the video and all of these things that they're able to that they've been leaking, really, and really you know, and they were and really showing the world that the Saudis were culpable in Khashoggi's disappearance. You know, it was the Turks who said, even before the Saudis admitted that he was murdered.
That's true. That's absolutely true. The Turks did say that the Saudi government was responsible for Khashoggi's murder, and even as the Saudi government's official line was, nope, he never he went in and he left. But then this week, toward the end of the week, the official statement from the Saudi government was basically that he was jumped by 15 men, and that's how he died.
Right. Well, this is, and again, it created a problem for the United States.
How does it create a problem for the United States?
It created a problem for the United States. Number one is because Saudi Arabia, along with Israel, are the closest allies that the United States have in the so-called Middle East. And so this created a problem for the United States because Saudi Arabia, even before Khashoggi's murder, the Saudis were already causing problems for the United States with their campaign in Yemen.
Right.
All right. So here it is that, the Saudis were basically like a pit bull let off his leash to go after, these suspected Houthi rebels that's supposed to be backed by Iran. And so it was like a proxy war that the United States is really engaging in with the Iranians, where they were using the Saudi military to go after these so-called Iranian-backed rebels. But the Saudis, created a bigger problem with the brutality of their response to the rebels. So, I mean, you watch the news lately, you'll see that the Saudis, through their bombing campaign and through their military intervention, has created one of the world's worst humanitarian crises.
And this is in Yemen.
And this is in Yemen.
So this is all connected, you all. This is not that we're not talking about issues that are disconnected from these larger, longer issues of militarism and war and foreign intervention that we are facing as a so-called progressive left. This stuff is all connected, and this problem with the Saudi government is especially important in the history of instability in the Middle East. Why is that?
Well, let's look at it here. United States has the Saudi government had made the largest weapons deal with the United States government in a long time.
Yeah.
It was one of the biggest defense agreements that the United States government had done with the Saudis. Now, it was always American policy to never give any Arab country top-line weapons.
Really?
No, it was always Israel gets them. Israel got them,
but nobody else in the region does.
Yeah, because the plan was to always give Israel the military edge over everybody else in that area. So I mean, this was really this was really off the course for America to make that kind of deal with the Saudis.
So why would they do it?
Well, they did it because again, it's to check the Iranian influence. We have to see things as a football game.
Okay.
And what I'm saying is that this is the way the government sees it. So you have Iran, who's the team we don't like, and then you have the home team guys, which is the Saudis. The United States is using Saudi Arabia, or have used Saudi Arabia, as basically to check, keep Iran in check. So it's basically an arms race in the Middle East. So anyway, this humanitarian crisis that the Saudis are committing in Yemen were done with American weaponry.
Wow.
So when we look at, and this is the reason why we titled this show, how Saudi Arabia and Israel are, when you have friends like these who need enemies, because the Palestinians are being massacred by American weapons.
Through our allies in Israel. They're our allies in Israel.
But the United States is the biggest arms contributor to Israel. The Israeli military, which is using those weapons on Palestinians. And and now you have Saudi, which are using American weapons on Yemen, on the people of Yemen.
Yemenis.
So the common denominator is American militarism, which is the reason why it is incumbent upon us in this country to create a robust anti-war organization.
Right.
Organize. We have to organize a robust anti-war
movement.
Yeah. Right. That's what I meant to say.
Yes, we do.
We have to do it because it's American weaponry which is creating the carnage that we're seeing right now in Yemen and in Palestine. This is all American weaponry. So again, where does this, this is the reason why this is have created such a problem for the American government, and we just can't. Pardon me. We just can't lay this at the feet of Trump. This deal with the Saudis go back to Obama.
So when Donald Trump says that's a great point, because when Donald Trump says, which is actually an incorrect amount, says that the arms deal with the Saudi government, which actually isn't an agreed upon deal yet, they're in negotiations about it. He says it's a $400 billion deal?
Well, it was a $160 billion deal.
That's the actual amount.
Right.
Trump said it was $400 billion. And he claimed that, and he and a few of his acolytes claimed that, do we want to sever ties with the Saudi government when they're ready to spend $400 billion on the American people? That is a complete lie about what this money would go to. Not only is he lying about the amount, he's lying about the fact that a deal actually exists. They're in negotiations. But let's be clear about where this money would go. This money would go, whether it's $160 billion or it's $400 billion, this money would go to defense contractors. That's where this money would go. This money would not go to the American people. It's not going to the middle class. It's not going to poor people. It's not going to reduce college debt. It's not going it's going to the defense contractors. They will get rich. Their stakeholders will get rich. The American people will get more war. But why is this a problem for the United States in the world, on the world stage?
Well, with the case of Khashoggi, and as in the case of the Palestinians, but more what happened with Jamal Khashoggi and the circus that's around that. And I don't mean to demean something that's by calling it that, but what the response of the American government, which is embodied in President Trump, when asked about this disappearance, the first thing that Trump said was, he basically said, well, we don't know what's going on, but we got money to make.
Right.
There's money to be made, and
Right.
I don't want to sever ties, or I don't want to do anything that's going to stop the Saudis buying these weapons. Well, that exposed them. It exposed the American government for what it truly is: soulless capitalists. Human rights, the life of this man, the lives of the Palestinians,
right.
The lives of the Yemenis, which are being murdered, which are being slaughtered by the brutality of Saudi Arabia's military through by using American weaponry. So you have hundreds of thousands of Yemenis who have lost their lives, but yet business has to continue.
Right.
Right. Even though that there were people inside the U.S. government that was basically telling Trump that, hey, look, they're creating so much carnage in Yemen, and a humanitarian crisis in Yemen. Maybe we should not sell them any more weapons. But it exposed the United States government as the soulless capitalists that they are. That human lives don't matter. That none of this stuff matters long as we can make a dollar. So the Khashoggi case just basically confirmed, reemphasized that and confirmed it even more. When you have the President of the United States saying publicly on the international stage that we don't want to lose. Now let's look at it here. The Saudis were supposed to, the Crown Prince was supposed to have this conference where all of these countries and private investors were supposed to invest because he wants to turn Saudi Arabia in, he wants to modernize it. He wants the infrastructure. He wants all of these things that so many of them admire in Western countries. Not ours, because we don't have the infrastructure like that anymore. We don't
have that kind of good stuff.
But let's look at it. The Dutch pulled out. We have other countries that pulled out.
The Germans
pulled out. So if these governments are putting, they're putting moral principles above making the deal, something that our president didn't do.
Right, because whichever one of Trump's the economic advisor, I think just yesterday or today, announced that he wasn't going to go to this conference. But this is only after Trump changed his tune about believing the Saudi crown prince, his story, that he didn't know anything about Khashoggi's murder. Now he's changed that. Trump has changed that story. I think it was as late as either today or yesterday that, okay, maybe this isn't an acceptable answer from the Saudi government. But he didn't go so far as to say, you know what? No, this deal is off. We're not going to continue to do business with a government that murders journalists. Because remember, this is the same guy who at a campaign rally for midterm elections the other day made a joke about a sitting congressman assaulting a journalist.
Right.
And his supporters laughed. So, I mean, this is a man who has called journalists an enemy of the people. And that's, like we said before, that's straight fascist language. That is straight out of Stalin. So this is not somebody who is concerned about not just human life over profit, even if it's profit for war. He's not concerned about this particular journalist. But we also know through, like you said, our weapons deals with the Israeli government, that this administration, nor the administration before it, nor the one before it, are concerned with the lives of unarmed Palestinians. So how does that, I mean, what does that say about us on the world stage when we've got leaders, like you said, not just Trump, but it is interesting that he says that he and Nikki Haley say that America is more respected now than ever. Are we?
Well, in their
in the world, on the world stage, are we? Are
well,
they right?
in their minds, I guess, it depends on what you call respect. I guess it depends on what respect looks like to them.
Excuse me.
It depends on what respect looks like to them, but I could tell you that all of these actions that has been happening, especially during the Trump administration and somewhat Obama's administration, have further alienated and isolated the United States from not only their allies, its allies, but any potential allies. I mean, or even non-allies who could, who we could talk to, I mean, that's what diplomacy is supposed to be all about.
Ah, there's that word.
You know what I mean? But see, when your diplomacy is based upon, who you can blow up, who you can kill, who you can threaten, and that's all Nikki Haley did when she was in the UN, was threaten nations that didn't want to go along with the line that the United States was, with the bullying tactics that the United States was putting forward. So this is U.S. This is the way that the United States approach diplomacy. They approach diplomacy, like a gangster. You know what I mean? And so this is what. So that doesn't get you respect. I mean, that doesn't get you respect. It gets you what the United States is getting now. Nobody wants to mess with you. You know what I mean?
Wow.
I mean, look, the EU, Trump has found a way to alienate the United States from the European Union. He found ways to alienate friendly factions in the and see, this is the reason why Turkey's doing what it's doing.
Okay, so explain Turkey's role in this.
Well, let's go back, and the first thing I want to do is explain that why is it that Turkey is sticking it to the Saudis?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's look at it historically, and I'll try to do it as brief as I can. But there has always been animosity between Turkey and what we call Saudi Arabia, now.
Okay.
And historically, the Turks were the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire, Turkey once was the Ottoman Empire.
Okay, right.
All right. And what that meant was that the Muslim world, at least a large vast of the Muslim world, was ruled by the Ottomans up into the early 20th century. Now, it was the British that had inflamed Arab nationalism in order to break the hold of the Ottoman hold on the oil-rich lands of the Middle East.
Oh.
Now, let's look at it like that.
Okay.
The fact that the Middle East has always been, just like Africa, has always been something that, the Europeans wanted. And so the Ottomans was in control of all of that oil in the Middle East. So after the debacle of World War One, when the Ottoman generals who disobeyed the Sultan, when the Sultan told them not to get involved in the war, the generals of the Ottoman Empire felt that Germany was going to win and that they would enjoy the spoils of war once the Axis powers, I believe that's what they called them at the time, but when Germany won, they thought then that would be good for the Ottomans. Well, of course, we know that the Germans didn't win, and as
this was World War One.
This was World War One.
Okay,
and as punishment, what happened was that it further weakened the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was already on its last days before World War One happened. So they thought that with a German victory, they allied themselves with Germany. Felt with a German victory, that this would basically give new life to the Ottomans, and they would gain from the spoils of war. It didn't happen. So as punishment, the British decided to dismantle the part of the Ottoman Empire in the Middle East. This is how we got Palestine. This is how actually this is how we got Iraq. This is how we got Yemen. This is how. So all of these lines that were drawn in the sand was done by the British after World War One.
They didn't exist before the British created these borders.
There was
in
no
these
Kuwait.
countries.
Saddam Hussein was right during the time. Those of you who remember when Saddam Hussein said that Kuwait was the third furthest province of Iraq or something like that, whatever he used. But there was no Kuwait. There was no Yemen. There was no Oman. There was none of those things. These were all lines drawn in the sand by the British, propping up leaders so that they can so they can extract the oil resources and stuff out of it. Governments that would be friendly to them so that they can exploit the resources and stuff. It's an old game that the colonialists played. And they did the same thing in Arabia. There was no Saudi Arabia. There was just Arabia. And so what happened is that the Saud clan, that's the tribe, have always historically been a brutal, they've always been murderous, they've always been brutal. In fact, during history, when the Saud tribe aligned themselves with this heretical Islamic preacher called Mohammed Abdulwahab, who is the founder of Wahhabism, that we've heard a lot during the hysteria of 9/11.
That's the Wahhabism is the fundamentalist faction of Islam.
Well,
is that an oversimplification of what it is?
Well, yeah, but what Wahhabism is, it's a distorted, puritanical view of Islam.
Okay.
I mean, extremely puritanical. So you had this preacher, Muhammad Abdul Wahab, who allied himself with this ferocious, warlike tribe of the Saud. And so they went on a mission of going around and telling the other Arab tribes around that either you get down with this program or you're done. And the Saud tribe killed untold thousands of their fellow Arabs in order to gain control of Arabia. And so with British help, they were able to take over Arabia, and the British put them in power, and they've been in power ever since. So why does this create a problem for Turkey?
Right.
Well, the reason why is the fact that Turkey, as you and I were talking about earlier today, Turkey has always wanted to be seen as a Western nation, even in the days of Ataturk.
Okay, who was Ataturk?
Ataturk was a Turkish general, who secularized Turkey. Turkey's secularization came under Ataturk, and Ataturk was determined to transformed Turkey into what he considered a modern European nation.
Okay.
And so they came up with the Turkish constitution being secular, removing religion from it. And if that sounds familiar, yes, the founding fathers over here did the same thing.
Really?
Because they viewed religion, as Ataturk did, as the founding fathers did, they viewed religion as a hindrance to progress. As a hindrance, you know, so the founding fathers seen, or they gathered how the church, they believe, was responsible for the oppression that was going on in Europe to a certain
and the lack of progress,
and
as far as industrialism and
right.
and enlightenment, intellectual enlightenment.
Yeah, the church wasn't embracing that, and so with the French Revolution, the French Revolution actually was the catalyst for this thinking of separating the church from the state. Wow. Europe was a theocracy, just like the Middle East was a theocracy at one time. So, where you had politics and religion was one.
Wow.
And so, nobody was more powerful than the Pope in Europe during the time. And, and nobody was more powerful than the Caliph in the Islamic world.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? So, these were absolute powers. So what the French Revolution had put in place was a turn from religiosity to secular humanism.
Oh, so you mean to tell me secular humanism is not some new term that progressives or liberals came up with?
No, secular humanism got its jump from the French Revolution.
Wow.
And so these ideas and stuff was with the founding fathers, especially with Jefferson and a lot of founding fathers who were inspired by that, and so Ataturk, in a certain way, was inspired by the same thing. Was inspired that if we can get religion out of this,
out of government,
right, or or just out of society, then man could be free, or humans could be free to embark on new ideas, and they won't have to be confined by religion. They won't have to be confined by theology, and so it was sort of a freedom. To explore, these things. So this was also Ataturk. Now the Turks have been trying to gain the acceptance of Western Europe for a long time, even becoming a member of NATO, which the Europeans did not want the Turks to become a part of. It took a long time for the Turks. The Turks were making appeals and everything to become part of NATO, and they kept being rejected.
Why? Why did they keep being rejected?
Well, they were being rejected because, first of all, in that part of the world, Islam, the Ottoman Empire, which in the relative terms of history, was not that long ago, and so there was a fear of a resurgency. Of Islamic, I hate to use the word fundamentalism, but a resurgence of Islamic political, militaristic, resurgence.
So the European nations in NATO were threatened by the influence of Islam.
Well, it's not that they was threatened by the influence of Islam. Like I said, the Ottoman Empire was not that long ago.
Right.
So there was a fear of an Islamic militaristic resurgence, and the Ottomans didn't have a good history in dealing in the way they ruled a lot of times. I mean, we've seen that with in Serbia. We've seen that with some of the atrocities on the Greek Cypriot island. You know what I mean, on the Cypriot island. I can't remember, but there's some horror stories that some European nations can recall happening in history from the Ottomans, and so that still lingered with them. It still lingered with them. So without the acceptance of trying to get this acceptance. To become part of this European, Western European way of life, and being rebuffed time and time again.
Right.
But the Saudis, for example, didn't receive that kind of treatment. especially not by America. Even the United States had a relationship with Saudi Arabia even before Israel was created.
Really?
So this relationship with Saudi Arabia goes back. And the United States has always had a friendly relationship with the Saudis, even before the creation of the State of Israel.
So the United States government has always had a relationship with this government that is ruled by pretty much a fanatical, murderous family.
Well,
or the heads of a fanatical, murderous family.
Well, it was all about business. And Trump, and see, that's the thing that we're talking about. Trump made that known. Okay, you're a murderer. It's not the first murderous government that the United States is in bed with.
True.
And so this is what it exposed. What it exposed is that the United States has no moral principles when it comes allying themselves with these leaders. It's okay for them to preach democracy and freedom and all this stuff, but yet when it comes to places where business, where they can do business and they can extract resources and all those other things, it's the United States that prop up these dictators and they prop up these tyrants and that oppress their people, but it's all done for business. And this is what Trump said, and this is what this whole Khashoggi have basically laid out in front of the world, that they're just a bunch of soulless capitalists. So why is it that after 9/11, when 9 of the supposed hijackers were Saudis, right? And yet there was no invasion of Saudi Arabia.
That's right.
I mean, the Afghanis unfortunately bore the brunt of 9/11, like the Iraqis bore the brunt.
That's right.
But yet there was no Afghani that was on those planes. You know what I mean? Okay, Osama bin Laden was residing in Afghanistan, they say, but at the same time, he wasn't in Iraq.
He absolutely was not.
He wasn't in Iraq. There was no Iraqis that was on those planes.
That's right.
But Iraq was invaded. Afghanistan was invaded. Over 1 million Iraqis lost their lives through American militarism. And who knows what the death toll is in Afghanistan. But yet not one single Saudi citizen inside Saudi Arabia has suffered the wrath of American military might.
And let's be clear on the responsibility of not just this administration for being friends with the murderous regime of Saudi Arabia, but let's look at the Obama administration in supporting a measure to keep the 9/11 families from suing the Saudi government. Not just the Obama administration, but the Bush administration was involved in this also. The United States government was supportive of a move to keep the 9/11 families, the families of the survivors, of the victims of 9/11, to keep them from suing the Saudi Arabian government for damages for the Saudi Arabian government's involvement in 9/11. The United States government, under the Bush administration and under the Obama administration, was involved. And as a matter of fact, I think it was Obama who said that the government had to make sure that the Saudi Arabian government could not be sued by 9/11 families, because if they were allowed to sue the Saudi Arabian government, that would expose the United States government. That would set a precedent, and that would expose the United States government to further lawsuits.
Well, he was right. Look, if you allow citizens from the United States to sue the Saudi Arabia, what's going to prevent citizens to sue the United States from what the United States do? So he was right in that. But at the same time, let's look at it how after 9/11, when everybody else couldn't fly, the Bin Ladens were allowed. The Bin Laden family was allowed to fly out.
Yes, they were.
Yeah. So this relationship with the Saudis go deeper than what we imagine. So now you have this crown prince, and who just recently took over his father, the king, have gave him all the power of ruling. And let's look at it. You're talking about a government. Nobody have kings anymore, and nobody, in the way that they're ruling now. So we're talking about a system of government, man, which is,
it's antiquated.
It's antiquated. It's tyrannical. We're talking about a government that's a throwback to ancient times. We're looking at that, but at the same time, again, the United States that Saudi Arabia has greatly embarrassed the United States, and the fact that Trump, as you said, has changed his tune about before he said, "Oh well, it was credible." Now he's saying, we need to look into it. That's not because he had a coming to Jesus moment. It's not because he had to change the heart. It's because the Congress is pushing back on him.
Right.
It's because that the Congress is pushing back on him because they understand what a box this has placed not only American diplomacy when it comes to other countries, but the reputation of America. How can America stand up and talk about supporting human rights and supporting the rights of this and supporting the rights of that and this and that and the other when you have a president again that's saying that business comes before human life. Right.
And especially when we're talking about in relationship to Israel, we have a government that is quite obviously in strong support of an apartheid state in Israel, but they also so of course they don't care about the murder of unarmed citizens who are fighting for their own self-determination in Palestine, but then they would go so far as to punish American citizens who want to participate in civil actions in calling for the end of that apartheid state. So, profit over people is really the mantra of the United States government. But
profit over people started when they brought slaves here.
Oh, come on now.
See, I feel a rant coming on.
Woo, yay!
But let me hold it.
Oh, come on.
No, because see, the thing of it is that people, so many people like to exclude us. And when I say us, I'm talking about African Americans, black people. Now the new term, descendant of slaves and all this stuff. But they want to exclude us a lot of times when it comes to the historical practices of the United States. But America has always been profit over people. It was profit over people when they brought Africans here as slaves and made our ancestors and commodified our ancestors. You know what I mean? So it was profit over people then, and it's always been profit over people. And so America has always been in its dealings with the rest of the world soulless capitalists. Let's look at the fact that during the invasion of Iraq and how all of those people died, and who profited most? Halliburton.
Right.
All of these other contractors. It was a gold rush.
The whole country's destroyed.
Right. It was a gold rush to go over there and profit off of the destruction of a nation. And so this has always been what America and colonialists before America was founded have been about.
That's right.
You know what I mean? I mean, we talk about King Leopold and the 10 million Congolese that lost their lives, man, because he wanted to extract all the rubber and stuff he could out of the Congo, and the brutality, man, of the diamond mines. You know what I mean? So, when it comes, the Europeans, colonialism and America. Let's face it, America is the stepchild of European colonialism.
Come on now.
That's what America is. America is the stepchild of European colonialism. It thrived off the value system of European colonialism. It might have threw in some lofty ideas about, all men are created equal and all this stuff. It threw in some lofty ideas that they never lived up to. And so, I mean, America is a byproduct of white supremacist European colonialism. That's what it is.
So this business about us being a shining city on a hill and the beacon on a hill and the land of the free, and especially us calling ourselves or believing that we are the policemen of the world, we're absolutely not.
I mean, even that reeks with the arrogance of colonizers. Who called on anyone to police the world? Who called on anyone to do that? Who called on anyone to be the caretaker of the world? I mean, these attitudes are part of of a thinking, of an ideology that thrives on a human hierarchy, a hierarchical scale.
Yeah.
That those that are top of the evolutionary ladder,
or consider themselves so.
Right. We remember the white man's burden. It's like, so it's like, oh God, because God had, and this was the thinking of the British Empire. The British Empire thought of itself as being ordained by God to civilize the rest of the world.
That's right.
So these attitudes is all connected to a white supremacist way of thinking, which they never got rid of. So who cares if we sell weaponry to these tyrannical governments to use and murder people? First of all, let's look at this. All of the weaponry that been sold and the tyrannical governments that bought them are all people of color.
That's right.
So who cares if you use the latest American weaponry to just get rid of more Arabs or get rid of more Africans? You don't see European countries engaging in that type of carnage through American weaponry.
Not that. Thank you. That's the key. Not using American weaponry. I'm gonna thank you, Scully, for your comment, Encyclopedia Abdus. This is absolutely why I wanted him to carry the weight of this segment, because you need to understand the history of Saudi Arabia. You need to understand also the history of Turkey and the relationship that Turkey has, and why Turkey is invested in it. Why is all this stuff coming from Turkey? So make that kind of clear.
All right. First of all, Trump offended. Like I said, Turkey feels slighted. The fact that they've done everything they could to become a part of this to be part of this Europe,
right?
This Western Europe, this post World War II Europe.
Okay.
And they went as far as committing troops to the war on terror. Turkey hasn't, they committed troops. They did everything that was asked of them to do. And the Saudis, even during the so-called war on terror, the Saudis refused to get involved militarily. They didn't get involved militarily against ISIS.
No, they did not.
You know what I mean? When ISIS was picking up, was terrorizing parts of the Middle East, the Saudis didn't use their military to go after ISIS or they didn't do that. So Turkey was doing that. Turkey was doing all of that, and yet the relationship. What does Trump do with Turkey? He puts tariffs on them. It's all about tariffs.
Oh, you know
it's
what?
It's all about the tariffs, and the fact that Trump's tariffs against Turkey, which is just one more slight that the Turkish government is enduring, and we got to understand that that the Prime Minister of Turkey, Erdogan is a different type of prime minister. First of all, American arrogance towards Turkey has in one way contributed to Turkey moving away from secularism towards an Islamic towards more of his Islamic identification.
Wow.
Because they're seeing to it like, we did it your way, we're being, and so Erdogan been pushing, even at the point of there is a clause in the Turkish constitution which calls for the overthrow of any leader who wants to turn Turkey back into an Islamic country. So Erdogan almost had a military coup some years ago. You know, it's incumbent upon the military to take the government over if the leaders want to return it to, and that's in the Constitution.
Wow, the Constitution of Turkey.
The Constitution says that Turkey must remain secular. And if there's any leader that wants to go away from that, it is incumbent upon the military to take over the government. That's in the Constitution. Now, we have the same thing in our Constitution.
Yes, we do.
Now, our
Very
Constitution
close.
says that if the government doesn't act by the will of the people have a right to get rid of the government. You know what I mean? So that's not an unreasonable thing in the Turkish Constitution, because we have that. That's what the Second Amendment really was for. But at the same time, let's look at this. Trump throws these tariffs on there. This is just another slight towards Turkey, who has committed more to what is asked of them than the Saudis ever had. You know what I mean? And yet the Saudis have not suffered once in all of this. And now the arrogance of the Saudis, even after international pressure is on them about Khashoggi, how do the Saudis responded, or how did they respond? Oh, well, if you mess with us, we just going to turn the tap off.
That's right. That's what the Saudis said.
That's what they said.
They said if you respond, if you punish us, we'll punish us. We will respond even more forcefully. Let's share this article, because I got to give your voice a rest, because you've just done most of the heavy lifting. Let's make it very clear about Turkey's position in this situation with the Saudi government and the United States government. This is an article from the Japan Times. We read everything. We read everything, y'all. And they explain this very well. Jamal Khashoggi murder claim seen giving Turkey leverage over Saudis and Trump. So, I mean, usually in the United States, we have this view of foreign leaders, especially leaders in countries in the Middle East. We think that these are backward, silly people,
right,
who aren't as sophisticated as we are in this country. They can't possibly be as sophisticated as our leaders. Well, then how come the leader of Turkey has Saudi Arabia and Trump over a barrel?
Exactly.
Over this. And it says here, even as Washington and Riyadh threaten penalties against each other in the case of the missing Washington Post columnist, a prominent critic of his country's rulers, there seems to be little appetite behind the scenes to push for confrontation. How the dice roll may ultimately fall to Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who can either try to link the prince, a favorite of Donald Trump, to an alleged murder, or diffuse a face-off that all three countries might find more convenient to avoid. By leaking information on the case in a controlled manner, Turks have signaled their willingness to confront the Saudis if they have enough international support, and they do, particularly from the West, said Gonol Tol, director of the Middle East Institute's Center for Turkish Studies in Washington. But if that support is not forthcoming, Erdogan may very well choose to pursue a less aggressive approach and offer the Saudis a way out. We're going to give you a link to this article like we do everything else for you to read it for yourself. But the people who are in the driver's seat in this scandal, this other current new scandal with the United States government and our murderous friends, another one of our murderous friends, is Turkey. That little country that we don't give any kind of credit to, that we think are just a bunch of, little silly backward people with the funny clothes. They have both the very powerful Saudi government and the Trump administration over a barrel.
And let's be clear, Turkey is not some backwater hole somewhere.
Come on,
Turkey is very modern. Has one of the strongest militaries in that area. So Turkey is a modern country. I mean, it's not no backwater sludge.
But see, because we know so little about foreign policy in this country, we don't think anything worthwhile or noteworthy goes on in the rest of the world outside of these borders. We don't know that. That's why somebody like Erdogan can be in a position to hold two of the most powerful governments on the planet over the same barrel. I just think it is a disgusting state of affairs, yet another disgusting state of affairs for this government that claims moral superiority over all other nations and to be this bastion of freedom. But, you know, we pal around with murderers and despots, and we prop up despots, and we put profit over people to the tune of us, our government and the military industrial complex that props it up, making billions of dollars off of the death and destruction of countries and millions of people around the world. But now we're being exposed. And we're being exposed by our long-term relationship with the apartheid and murderous government of Israel. And we're being exposed, once again, by this new scandal with the murder of Jamal Khashoggi in the Saudi Arabian consulate. So we'll keep an eye on this.
Just one point, that I want to add when it comes to Saudi Arabia, because this is Coffee Current Events and Politics, and we have always stated that our mission statement is to project our information and stuff through the lenses of Pan-Africanism and those things which which concerns the African people, whether on the continent or abroad. And Saudi Arabia. Now, you want to talk about the United States being aligning itself with murderous regimes. Saudi Arabia still do public executions.
Right.
Now, you would say, okay, well, so the other countries, but let's look at here from a black perspective, that more Africans are executed in Saudi Arabia than any other foreign nationals. So
really,
yeah. I mean, I had a friend of mine. You talking about the racism in Saudi Arabia? This is why these people like Randy Phillips and all them coming on here talking about, oh, please do more research and all this other kind of stuff. Because see, we don't want to hear the truth, and we definitely don't want to accept the truth coming out of black mouths, because we're not supposed to know anything.
Right.
But this is the thing that gets me, is the fact that I had a friend that went to Hajj, which is the Muslim pilgrimage, and black American, and the racism that black people receive in places like Saudi Arabia, especially Africans. And my friend told me that when he went to Hajj, that he was in some common place where other pilgrims were and everything. And he said that this Saudi guy came to him and said, just talked to him real rudely and said, get out my way, blah, 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 blah. And so my friend spoke, and he heard that my friend had an American accent. So he asked him, he said, "Are you American?" And my friend said, "Yeah." Then his whole attitude changed. He said, "Oh, I thought you was African." And his whole attitude changed. "Oh, I thought you was African." And then he wanted to apologize, and he said, "Look, I would like to invite you to my home, for a dinner stuff." My friend said, "No, I won't accept that invitation." He said, "Because when you thought that I was an African, look how you treated me."
Right.
So you're treating me because I'm an American, like that. So he looked at it as it being disingenuous, and he didn't accept it. But what I'm saying is that a lot of Africans who are forced, let's be honest, they're forced out of their countries to go work in these other countries because European racism and colonialism and exploitation have basically ruined so many of the economies of these nations, the IMF withholding these countries in debt, and all of the oppression that comes with it, have forced a lot of people to have to go to these countries where they're not welcomed.
Right.
And so they go into places like Saudi Arabia, and they be Muslim. And they be Muslim. And I want to emphasize, man, that the Saudis have killed more Muslims than probably America has.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, just within the bombing campaign of Yemen alone. Now, if everything was supposed to be about brotherhood and religious brotherhood and all this other kind of stuff, how in the hell can you, as a government that is supposed to be the protector of Mecca and Medina, the holy places of Islam, how can you be okay with projecting that much violence on other Muslim people?
And again, since we are also talking about the apartheid regime of Israel, if you claim to be a people, and it's the same with the United States and this idea that we're a Christian nation, if you claim to be a people of any kind of faith, how are you okay with oppressing other people in any way whatsoever? See, that's the unholy trifecta of this three groups of people, the United States, with these three governments rather, because it's not the people, it's the governments. That's the unholy trifecta with these people. You've got the government of Saudi Arabia who that is claiming this that's projecting to the world this religious piety, but they're awfully repressive of their own people, not just in their country, but in other countries. Then you've got the government of the United States that's claiming that we're a Christian nation founded on Christian principles. And we not only oppress people in this country, but we also sell arms to other people in other countries to blow up and kill brown people all over the world. And then you have the government of Israel that is actually not a government of Jewish people, but it's a government of Zionists that exists to ensure that Israel itself only exists or only consists of people who identify themselves as Jewish. So that automatically means that people who do not identify as European descended Jews are not welcome in the state of Israel, and they make that known through their policies. So that's something else that these three governments all share in common, and it is a hypocrisy on the world stage that people are waking up to.
Well, now we turn back to what should we do?
Yeah.
All right?
So what
now,
should we do?
Now we done laid out the case, and I think that this is, I think that the shame. Well, we said about exposing, but I think that the exposure of the United States government through the Khashoggi case and with Yemen, everything that we laid out previously, it also exposes the American people too.
What do you mean?
Well, it exposes the American people, for the most part, as a population that could give two shits about what's happening elsewhere in the world. We should be up in arms as a population, as citizens of this country, to see that our government is engaged in the activity of spreading this type of violence. So when we talk about violence and see that our own government is actively engaged in the most horrendous types of violence, whether just through the arms sales alone. And let's talk about just briefly that in Africa, in Uganda, how American weaponry is causing such a problem in that country that you have people who have organized. Entertainers have organized who are begging America to stop selling arms to because they make their way down to the street. Is that any different than the guns that find themselves on the streets of D.C.?
Wow.
That find them guns in the streets of Chicago and Philadelphia and Camden and all those places. That you find that the most lethal weaponry on the inner cities of America. Is it any different that from Uganda? Is it any different of American weaponry finding its way down in Honduras in the hands of gang members, which have caused such havoc down there that you got a caravan of 4,000 people making their way, fleeing their country because it became too violent? And we don't want to talk about the 2009 American-backed coup, which destabilized the Honduran government.
That's right.
Which created this crisis that everybody now that the United States government, Trump, and them is talking about shutting down the border as if these people are wrong, when in fact that their own government was destabilized because America backed the coup in 2009, and the gang members in El Salvador and Honduras and Guatemala are all walking around terrorizing their people with the latest American weaponry.
That's right.
So is it
That's
any
right.
difference? All these things intersect. But what do we do in this country? You know, where is the anti-war movement? Where is the outrage in this country?
Come
and that's
on.
why I say time and time again that there is no such thing when it comes to Americans. And, you know, I might get taken to task for this, but there ain't no such thing. You can only be innocent. You can only be an innocent civilian in this country if you are actively working to counteract the illegitimate and murderous actions of your own government. But if you sit back and you don't do anything, I will say it again. If I was somebody in Afghanistan, if I was somebody in Honduras, if I was somebody somewhere else, and American policy has visited such violence on me, then damn it to hell, when I get in the position and visit violence on you, then you call it a spade a spade.
So that is why this issue with the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, our relationship, our government's relationship with these murderous regimes in Saudi Arabia and Israel, is exposing this government for what it always has been. Like you said, a soulless, capitalist, profit over people entity.
Immoral, man. It's a soulless capitalist, and
immoral.
and it's up. See, and the thing of it is that don't come at me about oh yeah. No, what I'm saying is that we can change this.
Yes. Yes.
Our country could be whatever we want it to be. Our government can be whatever we want it to be. But long as we got our heads up our asses, and we're electing leaders based upon our bigotry, based upon our xenophobia, based upon all of this other stuff that don't matter. You know, the fact that we don't have anything beneficial as universal health care, the fact that we have in D.C. Legislation voted by the people to give workers more money, only for the city council to repeal it.
Right.
Right. To go against the will of the people. So, we can have a country the way that we want to have it. But if we just sitting around not doing anything, not organizing, not being part of the solution, then life is cyclical. It's like that boomerang that you throw out there.
Come on.
And you throw that boomerang out there, it's coming back to hit you. And I know that a lot of people out there don't like us saying it, but that's why we're the most dangerous show on social media, because somebody got to say it.
Listen, I don't know why do you think we go to these protests and get involved with these organizations? Because at some point we know we need to be a part of the solution. And it's not just going to protest, it's also organizing and connecting with organizations and people who are doing the work to further educate other people on these issues. How much of this stuff that Abdus Shahid, as Scully said, Encyclopedia Abdus, told you about Saudi Arabia and Turkey tonight that you did not know before, that all of a sudden is important now in regard to the policies this country. We're not talking about other countries right now. We're not talking about what Canada's doing. Canada's got to deal with their own stuff. We're talking about what the government of the country we are citizens of have to answer for. This is all stuff that's important. We have to stop. If we're going to focus on voting, some of us who do focus on voting, we're not sitting here telling people not to vote. What we're saying is, and we're not going to tell people who to vote for. That's not our job. That's not our business. We don't endorse candidates. We don't get into personality, focusing on personalities. We deal with people who know the history and understand the importance of the history, how it connects to policy, and where we are today. We deal with those people. But if we're going to talk about voting, then we need to stop focusing on personalities. We need to really stop being fixated on who our favorite political personality is, and we need to start focusing on the policies these people put forth. And that brings us to our last segment. After a little break, because Encyclopedia Abdus has to have a little water, because I worked him tonight, y'all. I worked him tonight for your benefit, and I really, really do hope you appreciated everything he had to share. So we're going to take a little break for 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, and we will be right back. You go take a break too. See you on the other side of this short break, when we're going to talk about what the problem is with this focus on Michelle Obama and her imagery and the personality of Michelle Obama. Why that's a problem for black politics. We'll be right back. We have returned, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for hanging out with us still in live and coffee current events and politics in Luqman Nation. This is Jackie Luqman.
And I'm Abdulwahab Luqman.
And we're going to end our show tonight talking about the focus, the problem with the focus on the personality and the imagery of Michelle Obama. Now, I guess everybody knows she's got a new book out. And, you know, people, even among some so-called progressives, you know, people have been, you know, talking about, oh, I just love Michelle Obama. And look, I don't want people to come with the, you know, oh, how can you be mad at her? Well, look, keep your personality worship to yourself. I'm not concerned about how nice people are. Let's make this clear. I don't know Michelle Obama. We don't know her. We've never met the Obamas. We're sure they're probably very nice people as far as individual people are concerned. But we're talking about policy here. We're not talking about personality. We're not talking about personality worship. I don't really care about somebody's persona, you know, their image. And I know that for black people in America, imagery is very important.
Well, yeah,
right?
But you don't own anything.
Well, yeah, you know, because when we have to be careful how we are portrayed, right? In the media, in the public sphere. And we've had a serious problem with black people being portrayed in very negative ways, especially black women. But I can't say especially, because black men have been catching hell in being portrayed very negatively too. But, you know, the Obamas were supposed to change all that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And okay, the imagery, the importance of the imagery of the Obamas in the White House, a black family in the White House, you know, the first black president, that imagery is important. The legacy, the history of that, the symbolism, that's the word I'm looking for. The symbolism, that symbolism is important for black people. I'm not going to take away the importance of the historic weight of Barack Obama with his black wife and his black daughters being the first family for 8 years. That symbolism is very important. And that's as far as I'm going to go. Because we're talking about policy and how that policy affects people's lives. And we talk all the time about Barack Obama's policies and the way he ran his presidency that really did not help black people and black politics in America all that much. But a lot of people like to keep their hands off Michelle Obama. Mm-hmm. Because she's the first lady. And people are like, well, what policy could she enact? And she didn't have any influence on policy. Oh, but did she? Because when Michelle Obama was first lady, as with every first lady, they have some type of cause they champion.
Yeah, usually something light.
And yeah, that's true. Let's be fair.
Yeah,
let's be fair.
Something light.
It's usually something light. It's usually not like some weighty thing like world peace. I mean, right?
Yeah.
It's usually, childhood literacy, because I think that was Barbara Bush's thing.
Yeah, child obesity, which was
Michelle Obama's thing. But okay, here's the problem that I have with Michelle Obama's Let's Move. And I like farming. We had a little garden that pretty much failed, except for the broccoli, and it was a delicious broccoli stalk too. But we're all for gardening and we're all for eating healthy and all that kind of stuff. But as a black woman in America, you mean to tell me you couldn't champion anything other than childhood obesity? When not only are black men the prime targets for mass incarceration in this country, but black women are, by association of mass incarceration of black men, the prime targets for mass eviction in this country. So there is a growing homeless crisis among black women. But Michelle Obama focused on Let's Move. Not affordable housing, which the lack of affordable housing disproportionately affects black women. She focused on Let's Move. Not addressing food deserts in predominantly black and poor communities, which, I mean, if she wanted to focus on nutrition, okay, but you couldn't focus on the lack of quality and affordable food in predominantly poor and predominantly black urban neighborhoods in this country. You couldn't. Let's move, though. The one place where most poor kids get a decent meal, and okay, I get school pizza wasn't everybody's thing, but school is the one place where most poor kids, get at least 2 decent meals. And what did Michelle Obama do? Mm-hmm. She focused on paring down the menus to make them less calorie heavy and less fattening, when so many poor kids needed help and poor families needed help with expanding the school lunch program so their kids could eat.
Right.
But let's move, though. So Michelle Obama publishes a new book. Mm-hmm. Her book is out. It's called Becoming. Not going to read it. Honestly, don't care. Because I have a problem with her politics. Because see now, okay, people argue that, well, Michelle couldn't really say much because you know how they censored her. You know how they responded to her when she was in the White House.
So she writes a book and she's not in the White House anymore. So how's she being censored?
Well, remember when she was in the White House?
I remember, but I'm saying, right. But I'm saying, how can that be an excuse now?
Right. What's the holdback now? What is keeping Michelle Obama from going farther with the statement she made that got her dragged by the GOP when what was it during the first term of the first campaign, when she said, for the first time in my life, I am proud of my country. Right. Now every black person in this country knew what she meant, but because she was dragged so unmercifully by the racist white GOP and a couple of their black lackeys, She backed off, and she had to be the nice black lady. She had to be, what'd you call her?
She had to be America's mammy. And
so she had to be Miss Positivity.
Well, I'm no, go finish your point.
No, I'm gonna let you have it now.
No, I'm saying finish your point because I'm going to be a little bit. I respect the first lady, but my points of view. But finish your point.
So I'm giving it to you soft. He's not. I'm warning you. I'm just warning you right now. So, as a black woman, yeah, I expected a lot more from Barack Obama. Very disappointed when in his second term, his lame duck term, he could have done anything he wanted to, and it was clear he didn't want to do anything for us.
I call him lame chicken.
But he's a guy who is not, he's a black man who hasn't lived the black man's experience because he's a black man who grew up with a white family in Hawaii, right? So he has not lived the black experience that a lot of black people in America have lived, but his wife did.
Yeah, well, sort of.
His wife was pretty much a girl from Chicago.
Now let's put that in context.
Okay,
she was a girl from Chicago, but she wasn't from Cabrini Green.
Oh, are you saying that there are class issues here?
She grew up in a middle class black family. You know what I mean? I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that, but no, she wasn't Michelle from the hood.
She wasn't Michelle from the hood.
She wasn't from Cabrini Green or none of those notorious South Chicago projects,
So could that be the reason, this little class consciousness that we've seen with the Obamas, how they really haven't championed the black masses issues? Neither Obama nor Michelle, neither Barack nor Michelle. Could that be a part of the problem where Michelle Obama was more comfortable talking about let's move with America's children instead of let's make sure that poor black and Latino and Native children in this country are fed. Let's make sure that their mamas have an affordable place to live. Let's make sure they have quality educations in their schools. She can write a book about becoming, but she's writing about her becoming the first lady. The black masses are still trying to become whole, equal, live in a just society. So what are we gaining from Michelle Obama becoming? What's your take?
Well, first of all, Michelle Obama, I never expected anything from her because Michelle Obama, especially since they left the White House, I got to admit that I was like everybody else, hoping that Barack Obama was really about the hope and change that he, and I guess on some level he was, but let's deal with Michelle Obama. What really got us, and I just want to bring our listeners in, or our viewers in on why we chose this topic. She got a book out, and it's this picture that was circulating around on social media with her and George Bush hugged up.
Oh, yeah.
All right, now I saw that picture, and everybody was talking about how George Bush was sliding their jelly beans and all this other kind of stuff. It was
a cough drop.
Yeah, well, something. And they made this big deal out of her relationship with George Bush, and she made a big deal about it. Oh, well, because of the seating arrangement. So then she goes on The View. I think it was The View, one of them chick talk shows, and she goes on there. And and she's doing what black people are expected to do, act like everything is fine, and and go around here and be oblivious about the racial climate in the country, because after all we overcame, and and it's presenting this picture, man, that, as you said, Jackie, that the majority of the masses don't experience on a day-to-day basis. Now, I had said that Michelle Obama is being used as America's new mammy. Now, what was mammy?
What? Yeah, let's explain this.
Mammy, historically, in the context of slave narratives, antebellum South, was used as a woman who took care of the white family, and she nurtured them. And basically, when a white child, she breastfed the white child before she
did.
Fed her own child. And so basically, she was there to nurture the white family that she was, I won't say a part of, but that she was around. And Michelle Obama is being propped up as that. I've been hearing calls by people who said that, oh well, Michelle Obama should run for president. Why?
So we can have a female Barack.
Well, why? I mean, why? I mean, why? I mean, why? So, I'm saying to myself, why should she run for president? For what? But let me be clear on why Michelle Obama represents to me. First of all, her husband is from the black bourgeoisie. So, and that whole black elitist class, for the most part, don't give two craps about the black masses. Number one. Because the way that the American society is situated, especially for the oppressed class, is the fact that once you make it, you're not supposed to care. You know what I mean? So the American society for the oppressed. Now let's look at it here. American society is designed for oppressed people to be Darwinian.
What do you mean?
Well, with Darwin, survival of the fittest. Now, it's not that way for the majority, because we know, and we have done this on our show, that when white folks had fell on hard times, government help came out. It wasn't no survival of the fittest.
We talked about that over and over again in history.
So it wasn't no survival of the fittest. So we know that when Franklin Delano Roosevelt and came up with the New Deal and stuff, well, that deal didn't include black people.
That's right.
So we were expected to play this Darwinian game of survival of the fittest, and if you made it, then you made it. If you didn't, then you wasn't supposed to make it. But they did. But that's how government treated us. But it didn't treat white folks like that. You know what I mean? So why do I get why do I use that to with Michelle Obama? Well, with everybody, but not everybody, with most people of the black bourgeoisie class, the orientation is, once we made it, I ain't supposed to care. You know what I mean? And the whole thing is, I got mine. And if you just make the same right decision, you get yours. Well, first of all, nobody in the history of mankind have ever reached success by making all the right decisions.
Nope. No. That's absolutely right.
You either got help from somebody or you took it.
That's the only way we have ever seen anybody succeed in this capitalist society, and certainly in this world.
I mean, that's whether you're a nation or whether you're an individual.
That's right.
Either, you got help or you took it. You know what I mean? So anyway, the reason why I say that I feel like the whole thing around Michelle Obama is dangerous for black politics. And let me clarify that. Black politics.
Right.
Which is the weakest politics in this country. Black politics is the weakest politics in this country. We have went over it time and time over our show why it's like that. And the fact that we had 8 years of Barack Obama, and black people came out of that experience worse off than when we went in that experience. Yet, as you stated, Jackie, why the whole time Michelle Obama was in the White House, with the myriad of problems that black women face, right? She didn't advocate for anything when it came to the different problems of black women. Now, somebody might say, well, she's the first lady for everybody. Okay, true. She is the first lady for everybody. But at the same time, the historic symbolism of a black woman being in the White House should have held more significance,
right,
for black women in general. That she should have been the chief advocate for black women when it came to policy and everything else.
I mean, let's just be real clear. We should have got something. That's basically what we're saying. We should have got something from one of them.
You have not had an activist first lady since Eleanor Roosevelt.
Oh, wow. Say that again.
You have not had an activist first lady since Eleanor Roosevelt.
And what did Eleanor Roosevelt do?
Well, you got to look that up. Eleanor Roosevelt's done a lot of things, but one of the things that Eleanor Roosevelt has done was that she was forceful when it came to racial justice. She was the one that demanded that Marian Anderson be allowed to sing at the Lincoln Memorial, I think it was. That the Daughters of the Revolution or something.
Constitution Hall.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That the Daughters of the Revolution.
Daughters of the American Revolution.
Wouldn't allow. Eleanor Roosevelt came and said that, she kind of forced them to change their position on Marian Anderson. And she was an advocate she was very instrumental in projecting the concerns of black people to her husband, the president. So she was a very activist first lady, so much so that a lot of Americans hated her for that because of her views on racial justice. There was even a rumor that she had black in her.
I remember seeing somebody spreading that foolishness around.
But you haven't had an activist first lady since that time. And Michelle Obama could have been that. As you stated, she started off when Barack Obama won the primary Iowa, and she said that she was proud of her country. But then again, what happened was somebody talked to her.
Yep.
And they said that you won't be able to have success in American politics if you advocate too much for black people, which is the reason why politicians don't do it. So Michelle Obama is running around on these shows, and she's kissing and hugging and backflipping and lifting weights and all this other kind of stuff. Where in a post-Obama presidency and in her life after First Lady, I would expect more from her than to get on these shows and talk about how she's doing things for girls. Now, why do I have a problem with that? I have a problem with that because you didn't advocate for black women when you was in the White House or the president's house. And now, seeing that we as the black community came out of the experience with you and your husband worse off than we went in. And you're making it seem like all these girls, you're saying that you're advocating for girls, as if black girls and white girls are starting out of the same starting block.
Come on now.
You know what I mean? As if they're starting out of the same starting block. So I have a problem with a black former first lady coming up on the stage talking about how it's all about girls. And it's this type of kumbaya politics that hurts us.
Yep.
Now, people say, well, we all should come together. Well, we've been coming together with everybody, yet we always come out on the bad end. Like I said on one of my posts, is when people talk about a blue wave or red wave or something like that, and I said whether it's a blue wave or a red wave, black people always drown.
Thank you.
So the thing of it is the fact that it's nice and it's lovely and it's Gandhi-ish to sit up there and say that we all should be together and I'm for all girls. But in the reality, politics doesn't play out that way. In the reality, black people, and for all of our needs and desire and activity on trying to promote the common good for everybody, then in promoting the common good for everybody, we fail to promote the good for ourselves, which is why we are chiefly to blame for the lack of progress we gained under her husband's leadership, because instead of us telling him that we gave you 98% of our support, this is what we want, we took all of our time telling everybody that he ain't the president for just black America.
That's right.
And so what we did, foolish as we did, what we did is we squandered 8 years of getting meaningful policy and legislation from Barack Obama.
Right, and now we're mad. Now we're mad that this president is having conversations with Kanye, who can't articulate the issues that we're faced with in even a logical fashion. Now we're mad.
Well, it's a reason why, and I want to keep on Michelle Obama. So Michelle Obama, to me, represents someone who is lulling white America to sleep. She's lulling them to sleep, and she's presenting this image that everything is fine.
Right.
You know what I mean? That everything is fine. She's presenting this image, about, oh, well, buying into the same line that all we have to do is make the right decisions and hard work.
Right.
Right. So that is why I feel that she's a dangerous symbol for us to back behind.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that there's not some good that that she has done, but I'm just saying that the same bourgeoisie attitude towards the way that she's displaying, I think, is dangerous for black politics. We don't need anybody to be America's mammy.
No.
We don't need anybody to hug George Bush and let him know that it's okay.
That we're celebrating how cute they are, all hugged up together, Michelle Obama and warmonger George Bush. We understand that her husband, that Barack Obama, was a warmonger too. But seriously, what does their cuteness? How do our black girls who are growing up, and our black boys too? But since she's focusing on girls so much, how are our black girls benefiting off of George Bush being her partner in crime? She can't be about girls when the man she's hugged up with, who is her partner in crime, bombed the families of little brown girls in other countries.
Well, you can't be the mammy of a man that ignored black people in Katrina. You know what I mean?
Come on. Come on.
You get tired of explaining this, because the thing of it is the fact that the thing of it is the fact that we are in the dire straits, and we've said this time and time on this show, that the black community is in dire straits when it comes to our position economically in this country, and we laid out the case for that. Other people have laid out the case for that, and we've said this on the show. So the fact that she has this book of becoming, and I don't begrudge her for promoting her book, but what I'm saying is that she garnishes, she still has the highest numbers of respect. She polls high.
She's still incredibly popular.
Yeah.
She's more popular than her husband.
Right. So and so white America loves her. So what I'm saying is the fact that, this ain't the time to lull them to sleep.
No.
But it is the time and I'm not saying that she got to be angry or anything like that, but make the case known for the demographic that you come from.
Yep. And
this is the problem that we as black people face, is the fact that we get these people like Michelle Obama that we have in politics, and yeah, they're there, but we never gain from their position while they're there. Right. You know what I mean? We're going through that in D.C. right now. You know what I mean? Where you had a majority of black Washingtonians vote for Initiative 77, only for the government to insult us and say we're repealing it because y'all didn't know what y'all was doing. Right. And that was the language they used.
That was absolutely the language. And when we say the government of the District of Columbia, we mean the mostly black city council government. So we understand the danger that the black bourgeoisie poses on every level to black politics and black people and black lives in this country. We can't afford to hitch our wagons, black people, especially the black masses, to the symbolism and the persona and the personality worship of Michelle Obama. Of Michelle Obama, we can't afford it. I mean, literally, we cannot stake our lives on how nice she is and how popular she is. We need solid black politics. And we need somebody who is unafraid to use the bully pulpit, whether it's the White House or whether it's the post-White House era or whatever that bully pulpit is. We need, whether it's the basketball court, whether it's the football field, whether it's the comedian stage, whether it's the actor screen, we need somebody who has the juice to put forward real, solid black politics. Because, once again, and we can't stop telling you this, you need to understand, progressives, that revolution is not going to happen from the middle class up. It's not going to happen from the middle class down. It's not even going to happen. Revolution happens from the bottom up. If we don't get justice, guess what? You won't either. This is why we talk about the importance of black politics. Good black politics helps everyone. Everyone else. And if you cannot get behind that and you're black, then why should we prop you up as a symbol that we should get behind? We don't need any more symbols. We need good black politics.
I understand that, and I'll say this so we can end the show.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that, a lot of times, and that, a lot of folks don't, because I've been told that a lot of folks don't like my delivery or they don't like this and that. But I'm at the point, man, where at over 50 years of age and seeing that we're still going through what our parents are going through, what our grandparents have gone through. This ain't the time to play nice, man.
No.
And I'm not one of them ones that you ain't gonna shame me about being angry. You know what I mean? Because that's the thing they say. Oh, well, you're so angry. Well, you damn right. You know what I mean? You ain't gonna shame me for about my anger. But the anger, my anger is how I channel my anger is doing what Jackie and I do all the time. Get involved. Mm-hmm. Get involved in organizations. Get involved trying to as best as we can to try to change things in the best way we can. Holding these we got a politician that we supported wholeheartedly, who we getting ready to jump in his ass.
Exactly.
Because he was one of the ones that voted to repeal Initiative 77. And Jackie and I, we supported this man. And, went on the campaign trail with him and did everything. So guess what? Now we about to jump in his ass.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Because he went against the will of the people who put him in there.
And that is our job. That is our job. That was our job during the Obama administration. And we were so transfixed with the symbolism of having a black man in office. We turned on the very black people. A whole bunch of black folks turned on the very black people who were trying to steer that conversation toward exactly what we're talking about right now.
Exactly.
Those people right now, we got problems with some of those folks. They're not perfect, but the Tavis Smileys and the Cornel West and the Dr. Eddie Clouds and all these other folks who tried to hold Barack Obama accountable to what you are doing for black people. Whole bunch of black folks were so happy with having the plate with the first black president on it next to Kennedy and Martin Luther King, and we ain't got no black politics. We ain't got no black
Everybody
policy.
else sitting around eating a full course meal, and we got a crouton and water.
So that time is over. We angry? Yep, we are. We're going to stay angry till things change. We're hoping that you are getting angry. So tune in tomorrow to Live in Luqman Nation, Coffee Current Events in Luqman Nation, where we will be live from the Women's March on the Pentagon.
And I'm going to see if y'all can pick me out, because I'm going to go and drag. I'm going to see if y'all can pick me out. We're going to play Where is Abdus? And we're going to drag. I may dress up as a Muslim woman.
And that's the only way he can go and drag.
But anyway, try to pick me out. It's a woman march. Look, you never know.
Stay tuned to Luqman Nation, to Coffee Current Events and Politics in Luqman Nation for some really exciting developments in not just our weekly shows, which we usually do on Thursday nights, but sometimes we do a surprise show for the return of Pit Bulls in Politics on Spreaker. Stay tuned for our what do you call those things? The podcast clips.
Yeah.
From Loud and Clear on Friday afternoons and midterm roundups. We will be appearing on RT Network in Question once again. So excited about that Monday at noon. Stay tuned for some other really, really exciting stuff that we are in the works doing with some really important anti-war, anti-imperialist, and other organizations Y'all, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. We really, really appreciate you tuning in and your support. Shirley, Vic, and our friends over here and Scully over on YouTube. Thank y'all so much for all of your comments. George Bernard, we see you.
Yeah.
I'm mad, George, that you gonna tell me that the kitchen's closed when I wanted to come over and have some vegan cinnamon buns. That's not right, but I still love you, and it's okay. So, thank you all very much for joining us tonight. If you like what you see, share this video. Invite friends next time. We'll see you again tomorrow from the Women's March on the Pentagon and our regular show Thursday night at 9 p.m. As always, be really, really good to each other. Peace.
If I didn't care.
Oh.